Company. Welcome.
Thanks for having me on.
Yeah. So thanks for coming on. More importantly, I know you're a busy guy with the shop. So tell me a little bit about yourself and how you came to having what you're doing now.
So I was born and raised down in Ventura County, so not too far away, and lived there the first 20 years of my life. And then 10 years ago, I moved up here to the Central Coast, went to college, and in college, I discovered that I like to drink distilled spirits. And I was studying agricultural science at the time, so I had a pretty solid biological and chemical sciences background, and it wasn't too difficult to figure out how to ferment and distill from there. So I ended up making my own homebrew in college.
So what was your first one that you made? I mean, and how do you come to that realization that you're like, I'm going to make my own alcohol right now?
Yeah, so it didn't take long to come to the realization that I like to drink distilled spirits in college. It was it was what I like
College
to
thing.
do, and yeah, but I also found that I had a bit of a discerning palate in college too. I mean, sure, I did drink it, but I didn't like to drink a lot of like the nasty rocket fuel stuff that a lot of college kids were drinking back then. So I thought, there must be a way to make. It sounds like it'd be fun to make my own spirits. One and two, there must be a way to make better spirits. So I taught myself how to distill and started making my own alcohol. And I was a huge rum fan. And still am a huge rum fan. And rum was the first alcohol that I decided to make.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
And so college, and then at what point did you come to the thought of you want to do this as a business? You want to go bigger than what just out of your house?
Yeah. Yeah, it took me a little bit. I of course I was making it, and it was the typical like friends telling me, "Oh, you got to go into business, you got to do it." And I'm thinking, no, it's just a hobby. I don't want to be the guy that's just doing his hobby as a business. And then I started to notice that craft spirits are really starting to take off. People want small batch, good quality spirits, and it was really starting to take off in the market. So it made sense to go and start my own distillery, and it looked like a viable business model. So I decided to take the leap and do it.
So your location that you're at now, which is on Ramada Drive, right?
Mm-hmm.
So prior to that, is that your first location, or were you somewhere smaller and then moved to a bigger location where you're at now?
Good question. So I was fresh out of college, so I didn't have any funding, or I didn't have any way to do this. So I ended up finding another distillery that let me come in and make my spirits in their distillery. And then I spent a couple years literally living out of my car. I'm selling my spirits up and down the state to different liquor stores
Really?
and bars, and that's how I generated enough seed money to proof of concept of my brand in order to make it make sense to get my own spot here in North County.
No kidding.
Mm-hmm.
So tell me how that play. Let me play that out in my mind as you tell me. But how does that work as you're driving up and down the coast? You said,
Mm-hmm.
kind of hustling your spirits. And what's the pitch? What's the sales pitch to that?
Well, that story. Frankly, a lot of people identified with that. A lot of people respected the person who was literally living out of the car at the time, selling their spirits and selling this dream that they had committed to and were working really really hard on. And my whole selling point was these are craft California made spirits, and that when I started my company 6.5 years ago, there weren't that many California local craft spirits going around. So it was really a selling point to people saying, oh, like I can have a local option versus the Jack Daniels or whatever imports are typically on the shelf.
Wow, that's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And so obviously some local businesses said, Aaron, absolutely,
Mm-hmm.
we'll sell your product. And you're like, great, here's 5 cases. And then what was the one that, like the one that, if you can think back, the location that it kind of really started, you're like, wow, this is really starting to take off.
Uh, it was Whole Foods, actually. That was like my big break that I felt that we got, and I sold our product in the Whole Foods, and I was in all the Whole Foods locations in Southern California, and that was really like
Wow.
my main tipping point when I got that, when a big chain like that decided to bring out my brand.
Wow, that's crazy. And you said you went to Cal Poly, right?
Yeah.
And so, and this had nothing to do with a Cal Poly project, because you always hear like, some of these other brands started with a project or a student business through Cal Poly, and it kind of blossomed like Starbucks or Jamba Juice and some of these other ones. So this was just something that you started on your own and grew.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I was fortunate enough to actually go through the entrepreneurship program at Cal Poly. So it's kind of a recent program that Cal Poly started. Is their, it used to be just a feeder school into, okay, we're going to educate you and feed you into some large corporate job. Well, now Cal Poly has an entrepreneurship program, and it's training students to start businesses out of college and give people an alternative path to go to. So I was fortunate enough to go through that program that kind of helped me get off my feet.
Awesome. Mm-hmm. Well, let's dig in here. Tell me a little bit about the spirits that you brought.
So I'll start you off here on our flagship spirit, which is our Big Sur gin. And usually gin is a spirit that's made from neutral grain spirit, because it's the cheapest and most available spirit to use. What makes our gin unique from the get-go is we use grapes to make a base spirit that the gin is distilled from. So we live here, beautiful wine country. We have these awesome premium wine grapes we can use to make our spirits. So I feel fortunate to be able to do that. So I take the grapes, I distill it into brandy, and then I redistill the brandy with juniper, which is the herb that you actually legally have to have in the alcohol to call it gin. And then from there, it's just artistic creative license. So I put coriander and fresh lemon peel and chamomile and lavender, kind of like some floral components to soften it up, because too often people associate gin with like this like bitter like Christmas tree being shoved into their mouth, and
right,
a lot of people have unpleasant experiences with gin. So I wanted to turn that on its head and make a gin that's approachable and soft and easy drinking. And we changed a lot of minds with this. And the reason we call it Big Sur gin is because I put native herbs in it as well. So there's things like white sage and elderberry and bay leaf, things you'll find walking around here on the Central Coast.
Interesting. Mm-hmm. Well, cheers. Let's try this out here.
Cheers.
Wow. So that doesn't give me a gin taste at all.
No.
It doesn't give me that burning jet fuel, rubbing alcohol taste that a gin would normally give.
No, it's really soft, easy drinking, approachable.
And you can really taste those botanicals that you're talking about, the junipers, and I mean, it's like a whole flavor. It's like a flavor of my palate's going, whoa, what's up? What is this?
Yeah.
It's really good.
Yeah, the juniper's there, but there's more like floral and herbaceous components to it. It's basically like, think of gin as like an alcoholic tea is basically what we're doing here. We're taking alcohol and we're infusing different herbs into it.
So would somebody drink this in a drink? Would they drink it by itself? Would they drink? I mean, how would, like, when they come into your place of business, mm-hmm. do you give them just this alone, or do they make cocktails? Do you make cocktails out of this there?
Yeah, we do. Mm-hmm.
Really?
So some people drink gin straight. Most people tend to mix gin into anything from a martini to a gin and tonic to like a gimlet or like gin sour. But at our place, we do tasting flights too. So you can come in, you can get a cocktail, but we like to do tasting flights as well. And you get to taste all of our spirits and get to know them on their own before you mix them.
Wow, that is really good. That is awesome.
Thank you.
So what else you got here?
Okay.
It's Friday morning here, so we'll kind of taste everything.
So this is our Axe Hole single malt whiskey. It's our new batch we just released.
What's it called?
Axe Hole. Axe Hole single malt whiskey. So the name actually comes from a piece of my family history. And my great-great-grandfather was one of the first people to settle the frontiers of northern Minnesota, and he had a logging company up there. And he ended up getting sabotaged by one of his competitors. He had the logs, floating in the river, waiting to take him down the river to the sawmill. And in the middle of the night, he had his competitors hired some thugs to come in the middle of the night and cut all his logs loose. He lost his whole harvest for the year. It bankrupted him, bankrupted his lumber business, and he found himself, struggling to trying to figure out what to do to make money and get by during the Depression. So he ended up figuring out how to build a moonshine still and making hooch back during Prohibition.
No kidding.
So unfortunately, he was a man who had bad luck, and he got caught by the feds. And back in those days, they would show up with axes. They break into your illicit distillery, and they would hack up your still with axes, and they'd leave axe holes in the still so you couldn't use it anymore. So there's actually an illustration of my great-great-grandfather's still on the bottle, and it's hanging up in our distillery today.
Really? That's a pretty cool story. Wow. Let's taste this thing. Golly.
So yeah, cheers to my great-great-grandfather who started it all.
That has really good taste.
So this is a single malt whiskey. Now, a lot of people are familiar with bourbon, which is made from corn. And corn tends to make whiskeys that are a bit more lighter and neutral and sweeter in flavor. I like making single malt whiskey because they're a bit more fuller bodied. And really it starts out as kind of like a beer. And with this, we actually worked with Firestone Walker to make what was basically a beer mash. They took their malted barley, which is like a lot of like heavily roasted barleys, like chocolate malts and things that are going to give you like tasty chocolate and coffee notes in the whiskey. And we took it, we fermented it, distilled it, and then we aged it in charred American oak barrels, and then finished it in port barrels.
Wow, that smells delicious. Yeah, it tastes delicious. I mean, kind of North County, whiskey, bunch of cowboys, right?
Right.
I mean, this is probably a favorite, I would imagine.
Absolutely. Yeah. Our gin is our top seller, but the whiskey is a close second to it. That's for sure.
Really? Your gin is?
Yeah.
No kidding. Yeah, I mean, that tastes really good.
And maybe the gin is a top seller because we make more of it, where the whiskey has to age. So when we release a batch of whiskey, it's a limited batch that we end up selling out of. So maybe if I had the whiskey around longer, it would be more of a top seller. But we will sell out of. We just released this batch. We will sell out of it relatively soon.
No kidding. So it's only out there for a little bit of time. So
right.
Like for me, I got to get in there and get some.
Right. Yeah. If you want it, come in and get it now, because it won't be around forever. Because that's the thing with whiskey is it has to age for at least 2 years in oak before you can release it.
Wow. And so do you have all these barrels that you're at the shop?
Yes.
In the distillery, and you have dates on them that says, "Hey, we put this in a barrel at, June 1st, 2021," type stuff. Really. And then what is the process like when you go in there at that time? Okay, you have a 2-year window or 2-year mark. Is it like, okay, so we're taking this out and now we're going to start to finish the process, or do you crack it open and it's ready to drink from that point?
So we have a date on them, so we have an idea of when it's going to be ready. But the next step after determining that it's mature enough, on paper, is tasting it and making sure that it tastes correct and mature and it's at the point, taste wise that you want it to be. So after we taste it, so it's a terrible job having to go through and
I know how do we sign up for that?
Yeah, and then after we taste and determine it's good, we take the liquid out of the barrel. It's actually, it lives in the barrel at a much higher proof. So this right here is 42% alcohol.
Okay.
It actually lives in the barrel at about 60% alcohol.
Ooh.
And that's really strong. That's really hard to drink, 60% alcohol. So we take out of the barrel, we cut it down with water a little bit, which helps smooth it out. It brings out more flavor in the whiskey as well. Brings it down to a more drinkable, approachable level, and then we bottle it up.
Interesting. Well, cool. Let's check out this other one that I'm kind of excited about, being that morning time. And so tell us a little bit about that one right there.
Yeah, so this is our Hazard Reef rum line, part of the rum line. This is our seasonal Grandpa's Coffee rum that we release. And so a little bit of backstory on the name. Actually, my grandfather was the kind of guy, he'd wake up in the morning and he would be, connected to his coffee mug as soon as he woke up. He'd just be drinking his coffee mug all day, until he went to bed at night, literally drinking out of his coffee mug. And when I was a kid, I always assumed that there was just coffee in it and Grandpa liked to drink coffee. As I grew older, I learned that at some point in the day, it wasn't uncommon for it to switch to a coffee rum,
right?
In the mug. So I
rum
made this
coffee. Here's a rum coffee.
Yeah, exactly. So I made this, in honor of him and what he used to do. So it's our aged rum that I infused with a dark roast Ethiopian coffee from Spearhead Coffee.
Okay, in Paso.
Here in Paso. And then we sweeten it up a little bit of sugarcane to make it a nice dessert coffee liqueur. And,
really?
That's what we ended up with.
Try this.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. That could be dangerous.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
That could be dangerous today. That is very good. That is really good. just to double check the taste.
Yeah.
I just want to. Yeah, it's very important to not guess, but double check.
Yeah.
Of that taste that I just. That is good. Wow, that is really smooth.
Mm-hmm.
So you can pour that in coffee, your coffee. You can pour that in your cocoa. You can pour it. I mean, you could pretty much just drink it just like that.
Yeah, you can drink it straight on its own, with ice, without ice. I like making hot buttered rum with it. My favorite is, and my grandfather's favorite actually, was making a White Russian.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, just pouring it on some ice with some cream and a little bit of vodka is awesome.
Wow.
And I like to pour it over ice cream. You can bake with it, add it to desserts.
Like brownies or something.
Brownies is awesome.
Oh, my goodness.
There's the possibilities are endless with this one.
How do you come up with, well, first, how many spirits do you currently have in your lineup?
So these are 3 spirits of 14 that you'll find in our distillery today.
So how do you come up with, obviously the gin is probably your favorite because you like gin, right? And then whiskey. I mean, how do you come up with the different spirits that you're going to, go after?
Well, kind of the general theme is I take inspiration from my surroundings here. The gin I make from grapes that are grown here in Paso and plants that grow native to our area. The whiskey is made from 100% malted barley, and I work with a local brewery, Firestone Walker, to make the mash because I'm making it with what we have around. We have a lot of great breweries around here. It makes sense to make 100% malted barley whiskey. The coffee rum, that was obviously inspired by my grandfather and having his coffee rum liqueur in his mug. So that's kind of where I find inspiration. Is I look around me and see something and say, it's a good idea. I should make that into something.
It's the distillery business is so unique and misunderstood, I think, because we were talking a little bit before that I was always under the impression that everything was wine based and had to be wine based in order to make a distillery, in order for it to be, legal or whatever it may be. But you're making this and this out of something else.
Right. And that's what determines the type of alcohol you're making is the sugar source that the yeast are eating. So alcohol, just to kind of rewind, alcohol is made by yeast. I think a lot of people know that, but the way the yeast makes alcohol is they need some sort of food source that has sugar in it to produce alcohol. So that they need sugar. They need it, whether it's coming from grapes or sugarcane products or grain or agave. That's what determines what type of spirit you're making. So if you make it from grapes, you make a brandy if you age it, or you can redistill the grape spirit with herbs and make a gin out of it, or you could just not age it and call it vodka. If you want to make whiskey, it has to be made from grain. If you want to make rum, it has to be made from sugarcane products.
That's very
Mhm.
interesting. So you're also involved a little bit more with the distillery in our area. So tell me a little bit about that, like the group.
Yeah, so we have a Pass Robles distillery trail actually, and we're actually the only organized distillery trail in the entire state, and one of the few organized distillery trails in the country. So a lot of people know, Kentucky Bourbon Trail, of course. Well, a lot of people don't realize that they have their own distillery trail, one of the few distillery trails in their own backyard here in North County. So there's 14 of us. We're all making a variety of spirits: vodka, gin, whiskey, rum, liqueurs, anything that you can dream of, you can find it up here.
So for yourself and your operation. So once again, tell me where you're located at.
So I'm on Ramada Drive, right, on the border of Paso Robles and Templeton, right off the freeway.
Okay. So, and you're open 5 days, 6 days, 7 days a week?
We're open 5 days a week,
Okay.
Thursday through Monday from 12 to 6.
12 to 6.
Yeah, we don't require, unless you have a group of 8 or more, we don't require an appointment. Just walk on in and you can do a tasting, get a cocktail, and hang out.
And so from this point on, where do you see the distillery? Where do you see your business? Do you want to you're in California still? You're distributing in other locations still in California, or is it just your location?
Yeah, the pandemic has kind of changed the dynamics of distribution in the state. So right now I've become more hyper local.
Okay.
I do distribute here locally on the Central Coast, and then I have an online store now too. So most of the distribution in the rest of the state is actually going through our online store now.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
And so they can get any of these spirits with the exception of the limited edition whiskey
Mm-hmm.
that may or may not be available, but somebody could pre-order it for when it becomes available again.
We don't do pre-orders on it, at least for now. But you can order it, like the whiskey, everything we have right now is available online to buy and have shipped right to your door.
Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
So let's what do you think about giving away like a tasting? I mean, get some people in there. You want to do that for us on the show?
Yeah. How about like the first? How about your tastings on me? So let's do like a voucher for a group of 4 for free tastings to come in and have a whole tasting experience at Calwise.
Oh, that'd be awesome. Yeah, that'd be awesome. So we'll do it like some sort of entry to win or something like that, to where we can give away this tasting for 4 to Calwise.
Yeah,
and get them in there, and you can educate them, because it sounds like your distillery is not so much just coming in and drinking like a bar would be. It's more of an education, right?
Right.
You have a full layout. You have the distillery, which you can see from the tasting room, but you have you pouring, and it's an education, right?
Right. Yeah. I mean, we're not just pouring it into glasses and giving you a paddle and saying, okay, here you go, knock yourself out. We're giving you an experience. So, a lot of people have been exposed to wine tasting, beer tasting, but a lot of people don't know spirits tasting. So we want to, show you what spirits tasting is all about. So it's going to be a whole guide experience where we're going to, teach you like the proper way you should be drinking a spirit, and how to taste it and get everything out of your tasting. It's going to be a whole guided experience.
So for somebody that comes in, has never been into your location, never been exposed to kind of the distillery, what is your most favorite part of that new person, that young, that mind, that you're going to just drill in what you do? What's the funnest and best part of that experience for you?
I really do think it's educating someone who's not experienced, and someone who comes in and they might be a little bit hesitant, because they're like, oh, I've never done a spirits tasting before. That sounds a little bit extreme. That sounds a little bit harsh. And a lot of people come in actually that like insist that they do not like gin and do not want to try the gin in particular. And my favorite thing is saying, okay, spirits are not what you think they are. They're not this scary, harsh, rocket fuel that you got to put in your mouth. Like, they're actually enjoyable. And I have a lot of people that come in that don't like gin in particular, that end up liking my gin and actually taking a bottle home. So that's really my favorite part, is opening someone's eyes to a world that they've been missing out on for so long.
Well, I mean, speaking of the gin, I'll be honest. I'm the same way. I was the same way when you said gin. I'm thinking, oh, I do not like gin. It's like I might as well just open up rubbing alcohol and throw it down my throat. But that was completely opposite, of that. It was, you could taste it. It was an after. You could taste the different botanicals, the berries, the juniper. I mean, you could taste all that stuff afterwards. Like it was an experience. It wasn't just getting it down to get it down. There was something more to it, which was awesome.
That's great to hear. That's what I love is like changing someone's preconceived notions that they may have. A lot of people, the classic story is always like, oh yeah, I got drunk too many times off gin in college and I just swore myself off of it. And, and they have this notion cemented in their idea and now challenging that and, in a respectful, approachable way and saying, just try it again, see what gin has become now. It's become this really tasty, interesting spirit.
Do you ever take that? I mean, you just made that story of that person that's like, no, Aaron, no. And you're like, just try this on me. Here, try this. And they become a fan?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it'll be the bottle that they end up they go from, no, I don't even want to taste it, I hate gin, to being like, that was actually one of my favorite spirits. I love that gin. I'm going to buy a bottle and take it home.
Awesome. Mm-hmm. Ramada Drive, Calwise. You have a website, which is
CalwiseSpirits.com. Yeah, okay. We have information about our spirits on there, as well as a link to our online store if you want our spirits just shipped directly to your door.
Awesome. Aaron.
Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, thanks for coming on the show, man. I really appreciate it. I love the story behind the reason, and that's the idea. You have a reason behind it, and you have a story behind every single one of them. That's what makes it so cool, to Calwise. So thanks for coming on.
Absolutely.
Well, there you have it, guys. Thanks for tuning in. I want to thank Aaron with Calwise Spirits Company for coming on and telling us a story and bringing these awesome spirits. You got to get over there and try it. So we want to thank our sponsors of the show. We want to thank Escalar Wines, Wine Travelers Hideaway, Rancho Sestero Meat Cutting, Pillar Real Estate, and 805 Customs, guys. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time.